But sometimes you go down the rabbit hole too much if you don't understand that it's a disorder. I think God was speaking through me. I thought I was a prophet, and like at some point, if I continued on, I would be God himself. A lot of it is disguised as spirituality, and so you think that it's like you're just becoming woke, but in reality, it's just a misinterpretation of reality.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health. I am your host, Todd Redabaum, and welcome to episode 100, part B, or something, or part 2, or the prequel. I don't know. Anyway, this episode, I am speaking with Trash. If you haven't listened to Trash's episodes in the past, please go back in the library and of the 100 episodes and check those out. Trash has DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, PTSD, OCD, I'm forgetting something, and schizotypal. And in this episode, histrionic personality disorder. Anyway, in this episode, we're going to talk about their schizotypal and what exactly that is and how Trash is affected by it and how it affects Trash. And at one point, Trash does talk about some trauma, and it is kind of graphic and stuff. So I'm just a little warning there. I'm very proud of her, I guess. She's very brave, anyway, to open up and talk about that trauma because it was very hard for them. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Trash. Please, if you want to support the podcast and the 100th episode celebration, please rate and review the podcast, and please tell people to listen. That would be incredibly amazing of you if you could do that for me. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can follow me at Bunny Hugs Podcast, on TikTok, Bunny Hugs Podcast, and Facebook, Bunny Hugs and Mental Health. Next week, I'm speaking with Brianna. She is an EMDR therapist and specialist. Actually, her specialty is EMDR therapy with youth. And she teaches me what EMDR is, really. I knew it had something to do with your eyes. Turns out there's way more to it than that. It also involves your brain. Anyway, I don't know why that made me laugh. I'm tired. Anywho. Without further ado, I give you Trash. It's nice talking to you. This is my 100th episode.
I know. I'm so excited for you.
Well, thank you. I'm excited too. And I actually I tried to get two of you on at the same time, but it's hard to get people's schedules aligned and stuff. And it kind of worked out in a way. Because about a week ago, someone from like episode 40 or something, they wanted their episode poll. They're like, I'm embarrassed by listening to this old stuff and I'm in a different place in my life. And I was like, sure, okay. So I pulled it. So technically, you both are 100 episodes because one's been pulled. But yeah, anyway, it's hard to explain. Anyway.
Yeah, I kind of understand where that person's coming from. Because sometimes when I'll listen back at them, I'll be like, I can't believe I said that. But then also another part of my brain goes, well, that's what makes me human. That is my experience. Like, if that is how we were feeling at the time, then a part of us must resonate with that and hold on to it, you know? And like, even if something seems like it's oversharing, that is still valid. And that is something that people will see and be like, oh, that's real. Because there are a lot of real raw topics that people don't usually talk about.
100%.
And so sometimes it's embarrassing just because you're not familiar with it and you're afraid of how you'll be perceived.
Yeah. And I think maybe if that person wasn't well when they were recording and that's why they didn't like it or whatever, I think it's important too for other people to hear what someone sounds like when they're there, because then maybe they can relate and whatever. So I agree, but I wasn't about to argue. I just said yes. Yeah. I just pulled it right away, and yeah. Because honestly, I think they're still not well. So there's
different stages of it.
Yeah, she's different unwell. But anyway, like I said, I didn't argue, and it's their voice, it's them. So I'm not gonna say, no, I own this. Whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I hope no one else does that, because I like all
Yeah.
the episodes, and I think there's people all over the place that get something out of each episode. So
Yeah, a lot of people have actually like reached out to me and stuff and have been like, hey, it's really cool because I got to like learn more about you and understand like some of your behavior and stuff. I did cry a bit, but it also there were parts that I was able to relate to and connect to. And some of those parts were the parts that I was like, oh, that's so embarrassing. And I was like, oh, but it helped. Okay, I don't mind being a little embarrassed then.
yeah, exactly. So you have had some people reach out that have heard you on the podcast?
Yeah, and it throws me off because I'm just like, oh, because like sometimes it's people who like, I'll see on TikTok and I'll be like talking to them, not too much, or I'll see their comments and stuff, and then they'll be like, hey, you know,
Huh.
I listened to the podcast, or I'll start like talking with someone and they're like, hey, I listened and I was like, wow.
Hmm.
And so then they bring up things from it and be like, hey, I have more questions about this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I got you.
You can ask the queef machine anything you like.
Yeah.
I love it. God damn it. That's what I should have named the podcast.
Bunny hugs, queef machine, mental health. Mental health machine.
I was trying to think what should I do for my 100th episode, because one of my friends was like, oh, you got to do something special. I was like, do I? And they're like, yes. So I was like, well, I don't know what to do. So yeah, I'm just talking to my favorite people.
Yeah, and it warms my heart. Like, I feel so privileged that I am able to be part of it, because I'm just like, I talk about the podcast a little more than I probably should, but I think that's good. I'm just like, oh, by the way, and people are like, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look at it.
We've talked about all your different diagnoses, except for how do you say it? Schizotypal?
Schizotypal personality disorder, but we also haven't talked about the obsessive compulsive disorder, borderline personality disorder, or post-traumatic stress disorder.
But I've done other episodes on those ones before. They weren't with you, but I've done episodes like that.
Yes. But the one that we haven't covered is the schizotypal, and which is one of the less common ones, I'd say.
Yeah.
Especially in like the schizo family or class of it.
Yeah. So what are symptoms of it? How do you get what does it look like, and how do you get diagnosed with it?
So with it, it's our brain is very spacey today, but we got this. Okay. But with it's just like some people describe it as like a mild schizophrenia, because it's similar to it, except for you don't get the voices. The closest thing to the voices you get is sometimes you will hear a whisper, which is upsetting because it whispers my dead name. And so it'll just be like, hey, or you'll get a hey. Sometimes when you're walking, you will see like a man behind your shoulder. You feel like you're being followed around. And how it's categorized differently from schizoid is it's magical thinking. So it's kind of cool that it makes life seem a little more enchanted, but sometimes you go down the rabbit hole too much if you don't understand that it's a disorder. Like, I used to think God was speaking through me. I thought I was a prophet, and like at some point, if I continued on, I would be God himself. And I felt like I was just, the universe. I was special force in the universe. And then anything little that would happen, I'd be like, that confirms it. A huge one is ideas of reference. Not to be confused with like delusions of reference, but like ideas of reference is where like if you're listening to a song and you're just like, this was written about me. And sometimes I'll be like, yes, this artist listened to my thoughts and was like, I'm going to put this into a song and I'm going to make sure it finds them. And I'll be listening to it and I'm like, yeah, they know me. They read my thoughts. God told them.
Well, you told them because you're God.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, yeah, it causes a lot of things where a lot of it is disguised as spirituality. And so you think that it's like you're just becoming woke. But in reality, it's just a misinterpretation of reality. And so another one of like the ideas of reference is one that I had as a kid. I really thought it was like food was alive. And I still have issues with it. Now I have to watch Family Guy when I eat so that I'm not looking at the food because otherwise the food looks back at me like, help me. I don't want to be eaten. Let me be free. And it makes me feel bad because it reminds me of that movie with Seth Rogen, Sausage Party.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it real? And so yeah. Yeah, it causes a lot of like confusion mentally because it's just like, okay, and you think it's real. Like it feels real, but the difference also between that and other schizo disorders is part of you knows it's not real. When you have an hallucination, like for example, like with us, a lot of times it's bugs or parasites. And so like, you know how sometimes if you see a spider, you'll feel itchy.
Yeah, I sure do.
Well, if my mind gets too stressed, I will see the spider and I
Hmm.
will keep trying to like hit it. I'm like, die. And it is still there and it'll
Even
move
though,
through my fingers.
even though you know it's not real.
Yes. And so I know it's not there after a certain, like, after the first time, I'm like, oh, you can't go through my hand. That's not how this works. And I'll be like, this isn't real. Like how I kind of knew, like, oh, I'm not actually a prophet. There's something going on. But it's also like an overwhelming feeling that, oh no. Another example of ideas of reference is if I see an animal, I will obsessively, because it mixes in with my OCD. And so I will obsessively research this animal. And I'm like, this is them telling me, hey, so because of this animal, that means I have to take these steps to be on the right path of the universe that is destined for me to be great. Like if I see a deer out the side of the road, most people pass by that and they're like, oh, that's a dead deer. I see it and I'm like, oh, it's telling me that I need to kill off some of my old toxic habits. If I see an egg randomly, I'm like, I'm going through a rebirth. And so I will shape my life around these things that are usually normal occurrences. If I hear a balloon pop when I'm thinking something, I'm like, I will do the exact opposite. We're like, no, God told us no because he popped the balloon, even though the balloon would have typically popped.
Hmm. Yeah, this does
And so,
sound. I can see how there'd be overlap with OCD. Some of this is kind of
yeah,
OCD-ish
yeah,
thinking as well.
yeah. And so a lot of it like combines with each other. And so it makes it worse because, like, at least with OCD, you don't have the hallucinations. And that's where we were able to start understanding, oh, there's parts where they like combine, but there's other parts where it's like more just this going on because also OCD doesn't affect your style.
Your style, did you say?
Yeah.
Oh.
Schizotypal personality disorder affects style as well. That's why we always got the rune on our nose
Hmm.
and why we got the heavy makeup and stuff.
You're wearing makeup?
Because I'm wearing a little bit.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
I got like the fake eyelashes on. I'm wearing what I fell asleep in last night, so it's not
Me
not
too.
the most pristine. But like, you know how sometimes I'll have the big spirals.
Yeah.
So the spirals have very big significant spiritual meaning to us. Like majority of our tattoos and stuff is just from us being like, oh, that that is what we need in our life right now because that will keep us safe. If we don't have the rune on our nose, we're in danger. Something bad's going to happen. We're not protected anymore.
Hmm.
So it affects your style, but also sometimes like we'll wear one uh long sleeve sock, thigh high, one thigh high and one short sock. And like we're like, this looks cool. Or in the past, we'd wear bow ties. And people don't usually just wear bow ties with whatever they're wearing, but that's something that makes the brain go, yeah. And so it has an odd, eccentric behavior, appearance, and speech style.
Oh, has it affected your speech?
A lot.
Oh,
A lot. Yeah. A lot of it tends to be more magical, metaphorical. And so sometimes if somebody's like, "How are you feeling?" And I'm like, "Well, like boiled cabbage."
oh, right, right. Okay, I see, I see.
In the past, I'd say phantasmagoric when I was feeling mystical. Because big word, cool.
Is that an actual
And
word?
it's to be in a dreamy like trance. It's from Edgar Allan Poe. Like he didn't invent the word, but like he used it a lot in his writing, and like from a young age I snatched that up and I was like, yeah. But a lot of times it's metaphorical, and so like what will happen, because it also makes it hard to describe your emotions. Like, what is sad when I could be a dried up carrot in the fridge?
Hmm. I kind of like that. It's almost more like synesthesia in a way.
Yeah,
You know what that is?
not really.
Okay. So it's like when you can hear names and stuff as colors and shapes, or you can hear music as colors and shapes. So you're like you're taking feelings and turning them into like relatable objects that
Yeah,
which are very visual. So it's not quite color and shapes, but it's more like it's almost more than
it's
that.
emotions into the physical world.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, a dried up carrot in a fridge do look sad.
Yeah,
I like it.
it's a pretty sad feeling.
You should write poetry.
I actually do sometimes.
Ah,
Uh, like before our last relationship, we were actually going to release a book, and then we were never able to finish writing because of how bad it was. And so sometimes we'll read the poems and people will actually really like it, and it makes us happy. We're debating reading them on TikTok more, but we get nervous because like things that are vulnerable, people can pick apart and it's harmful.
yeah, yeah. I can imagine. So when you say it wasn't very good, and you mean like you wrote it and then you read it back and you're like, what the fuck did I just write? Like it was bad. It wasn't very good.
It was good writing, but we no longer had the mental willpower to be able to write because our last relationship held us captive for several months. So,
Literally.
yeah, we were passing out due to malnutrition. We were only able to eat once a day, if that. And so we started getting concussions. And I mean, on the bright side for him, we weren't able to run away or pack our things anymore and be like, please let us go home.
How long ago was this?
It was a few years ago before we turned to TikTok. We turned to TikTok after we had escaped that situation. We actually got out of it thanks to being mentally ill.
Huh.
Because since his methods of abuse were to put you in a more dissociative state, it ended up pulling out our protectors and then our persecutors. And one of our persecutors is the one who usually gets it like across to not mess with us, because that's where all our hatred goes. Like we're even scared of them. And so
did the DID come about because of that relationship, or did you have DID before that?
Oh, whole life.
Okay.
DID develops usually within the first 5 years of your life, going through severe trauma.
Gotcha.
And so with that, we've had it the whole time. But what happened is with what he was doing, he was making it worse. Because the more he put us in a dissociative state, the more it started pulling out all these protectors and all these ones to keep us safe. Because our body was like our mind was confused, but also like, no, we need to be safe. Something is wrong. But because of that, it made our mental health flare more because we were being traumatized, not understanding exactly what was going on. And that's why we had to leave our old job, 4.5 years of a level 3 caregiver, and why we had to leave our old apartment and stuff. Thankfully, Einstein and stuff was living here already.
Who?
And so Einstein and a lot of my stuff were able to be here. I just had a bag. And I thought I was going to be staying with my ex for a little bit, but he wouldn't let me go.
Your roommate's name is Einstein?
No, Einstein's my cat.
Oh.
Yeah, so Einstein was able to go here, and my roommate Max was able to take Einstein in. And so it was nice. And then thankfully, after being released, because I think it was either July or August to November, is how long. So thankfully it wasn't like as long as other people who have been held captive and stuff. It's weird because I always like I thought it would be different because I was like, well, you know, I'm not in like a hole in a basement. So maybe, this is fine. Because, the horror movies, my mind always jumps to the horror movies. When something bad happens, like when I was told, hey, you were tortured as a child, I was like, I still got my fingers. My teeth are here. I'm fine.
Physically.
Yeah. I mean, I got some scars, but that's different.
So were you like reported missing and stuff?
No, because like also I was still able to have my phone with limited access to who I could talk to, but still had my phone. And so that's where it became confusing because there were all these red flags. Like after the partial hospitalization program, I tried going out the last day of being in it because otherwise I usually had to go straight back. And like a lot of times with abusive relationships, they'll start off lenient and giving you this idea of freedom as they slowly cage it in until you realize something's seriously wrong. Because it's slight changes. It's kind of like when you're growing up with someone, you don't realize how much older they're getting because you see the slight changes and you're like, oh, and then you're like, whoa, you're tall.
The boiled
If you jump from
frog.
point A to point B. And so, yeah, it got really bad at the end, and we weren't even allowed to clean the apartment that we were forced to be in. Like he told us we were not allowed to clean, and that was so hard to do because the bathroom hadn't been cleaned in like 4 years. And it smelled so bad. We had to like squat every time we had to go to the bathroom, and like it got worse when we started being concussed.
So he's physically no, he wasn't physically. Was he physically as well? Abusive?
uh Not really, unless you count like shoving into a corner.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
comparatively to my other exes, it was a lot lighter, so the red flags didn't go off as much because a lot of the things he would do would be things that you can't pinpoint when you're in a confused state. And he'd be like, tell me what I'm doing wrong and I'll stop the behavior.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know, but I don't feel okay. And it's like, well, that's because you're mentally ill and you're the problem and you're being mean to me right now. And I'm like, maybe I am. Maybe I'm a terrible person. Oh no, begging on the floor to be loved.
Good.
Probably
God.
some of the lowest we've ever been. And then after being freed, all these things started coming to us where we were like, oh no, because then we were able to go through all the different list of different types of abuse and stuff and realized we just weren't familiar with the techniques he was using. And so then after all of that, we wrote a huge thing and pinpointed all of those behaviors. And we're like, our therapist made it very clear, you do not have a trauma reaction unless there is an active trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Like with some disorders, they happen out of nowhere.
Right.
But with like PTSD and like PTSD form disorders, you don't just randomly have it happen. There is some sort of stress, some sort of trigger.
Right.
And when it is that severe of levels, it's from what's going on. Like it's not just a little silly, goofy, oh, my mind's going to hate this person for no reason.
Right.
Something is going terribly wrong, especially like not being able to clean. Like that, like I was just like, please, like I would cry and beg just to clean the bathroom. And that's sad because I'd still get told no. And like it was always, oh, your communication's not good enough, even though I've done 10 years of different classes and types of classes about communication. It was like, oh, your communication's not clear enough. If you want to go outside to go to the store with me, you're gonna have to write a whole essay. So we would. We had like a 3-page essay at one point. And just for him to be like, I'm tired, not feeling it.
Jesus.
Yeah, no, it was pretty bad because also we weren't allowed to have our stuff because we were never able to come and check on Einstein and pick it up.
Hmm.
And so we just kind of had to wear the same clothes and we weren't able to shower often because the bathroom smelled so bad that it was like, would I rather be dirty right now or take the shower?
Good God, trash.
Not a good situation. That was when we actually had our mental health snap to where we weren't able to go outside without supervision anymore.
Right.
And when our schizotypal actually flared a lot worse than expected. Because like the first time our schizotypal got like severely bad was when it became combined with drug use, like when we faced meth addiction at a young age. It's when our delusions and like hallucinations got a lot worse. But those delusions and stuff did not go away after the use.
Hmm.
And so like sometimes people are like, ah, it was the drugs. That's why you're like this. And it's like, well, those effects don't linger on, but they can worsen schizo disorders or any disorder, even like BPD and stuff. If you face addiction, you can end up having a lot rougher of a time battling that disorder after the use. But yeah, so we ended up noticing it getting really bad in the fact that between that and the OCD, we started facing really, really bad agoraphobia. We were afraid because, like, even going to the stores now, like, we're just now dipping our toes into being social again, like non
Face to
online.
face.
Because
Yeah.
online, they can't hurt us, they can't kidnap us unless we're like, here's our address, kidnap us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you in a past episode you talked about your histrionic too was another reason that you wouldn't meet face to face because you were scared that you were gonna basically create your own trauma by having sex with people and hurting people and then being hurt and yeah. So I guess I
Yeah, and
don't.
so
I guess that's lesser of the two evils is being agoraphobic as opposed to creating
yeah,
constant trauma.
because with not wanting to go to stores and stuff, it's mostly because when we're out in public, we do a thing where we hold our stomach.
Mm.
They can't stab our stomach. They could stab our arms, but they can't stab our stomach because, you know, everybody's out there to get you. And so,
Have you been stabbed before?
I mean, yeah, but like not in the stomach for some reason.
Who the hell stabbed you?
Uh, stranger. It was downstairs. We were like tied to a tree at 15. So yeah, we're a little broken.
What do you mean downstairs?
But
Like they stabbed you below the
uh,
belt?
we were we were raped with a knife. We
Trash!
try not
Jesus
talking about it
Christ!
too much because it's still very emotional. And
Yeah.
like we talked with our sister and she remembered us coming home that night because our mom laughed at us because we weren't wearing any pants and there was blood. Because we had to walk several miles home in the rain after.
Good Lord. Oh, I didn't mean to upset you, but
Oh no, you're all good.
I
But
also
yeah, so we
I
have
know
been
we've
stabbed.
never talked about a lot of the trial. Like we've tiptoed around some of it before, but yeah, you've never really.
Yeah, some of it was a lot worse than others, and that's why it's like easier for us to talk about like, oh, our dad molested us, because some of the things were a lot darker. Like
Yeah.
we've had quite a range where even some of those things that people can't even like fathom are light for us
Mm-hmm. Right.
because we have layers. We're like an ogre. But yes, with schizotypal, it makes it where you're very mistrustful of others, and it actually makes it so listed in it. It says you have a hard time socializing with people like who aren't your immediate family. But for us, we have a hard time with family as well. And so what we'll do is we will like cling to one or two people, and those people we will tell like mostly everything. We will be absolutely like just completely honest and like open and let our guard down. But then also have these thoughts that they're gonna attack us at some point. They're just waiting to strike. There were points that we lost friends because we thought they were FBI agents wearing a wire, hoping to get us for something.
Right. Or the BPD comes in and you're like, have attachment issues with them because you've told them everything. And they're like, why are you talking to that person? I told you everything. You can only talk to me. And, or I'm assuming, right? That's the kind of thinking, I think.
Not necessarily.
Oh.
In the past, yes, we struggled with it a lot more. But thankfully with BPD, there is DBT skills and CBT skills. And we practice those on the daily, dialectical behavioral therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy. We've done a lot of training on them ever since actually middle school, because the school could tell there was something up with us. And even though our mom wouldn't let us get mental health treatment until it was court mandated, we were able to get these classes to learn how to communicate, how to use coping skills. And so our BPD is a lot easier to manage, especially with the help of medication such as mood stabilizers. And so BPD, we're actually pretty on guard about, and we actually understand, we will notice if we are starting to develop a favorite person. And what we do, the best way to do it, as hard as it is, you go through withdrawals from talking to that person. But you have to separate and take more time for yourself. And try to build a schedule for yourself, listening to music and all of that, so that you can separate yourself, check your phone for their messages less and less. And then it cuts that cord that had grown. And it makes it so you can actually talk to them like a regular person without being obsessive.
So you feel like your BPD is somewhat treated then? And you're not cured. You're never really cured of a disorder, but you feel like you have at least that one somewhat in check.
Yeah, I have a safety plan with it. Just like how we've created a safety plan recently, we've actually kind of wrapped it around with our therapist before she sadly had to take a month and 2 weeks off. So we are without a therapist for a little bit. And our psychiatrist changed professions. So we are waiting to get a new psychiatrist. Yeah, this month's going to be fun.
I've been in situations like that where it's like, I have a counselor I love, and then I hadn't seen them for a while, so then I call them. They're like, oh, actually, I don't see clients anymore. I'm a manager, and I'm more of a manager now. And it's like, you fuckhead.
Yeah, it was so hard because my therapist is getting surgery, and that's why she's taking time off. But with the schizotypal, wrapping around, what it does is it convinces your brain, same with the BPD thoughts where you feel like everybody is against you. I've heard that happen often with BPD. Yeah, type of paranoia. And so it goes with brain's just oh, she's actually abandoning you and wants to take as much time away from you as possible because you are a terrible client and she hates hearing you talk about anything and hates your whiny voice. And it just and then I'm and then she, the last appointment, it was so cute. She was just hey, you can email me anytime. No, I'm not abandoning you. I love talking to you. I have to get this done, but I still care about you and will be thinking about you.
Oh, that's
and I'm
nice.
Oh, thank you. She knows just what I need, so it's nice. But
do you ever think about me?
Yeah, of course.
You lying. You lie.
No. Oh. I said I talk about podcasts you way too much. I actually remember your name, which is rare.
What is it?
Todd.
It's Troy.
No, it's Todd. If it's Troy, now it's Todd. It is Todd now.
What's your dead name?
I don't like going over that.
Fair.
Because also an ex-friend of mine ended up making a whole website with my whole dead name and tried making all of my trauma and turning it around against me. And said that I'm an animal abuser. Einstein is very loved. But what she did is everything I was I'm so scared I'm not treating him right because my parents were horrible to animals. So I'm terrified, what if I'm not treating him right? Oh my gosh, what if his quality of life isn't the best? I clean his litter box, but sometimes I forget to clean it for a day. And so she's yeah, trash chokes her cat.
Where do you find these people to be in your life?
She was in my life for 10 years. Actually
God,
recently reached out to me and I have not responded
good
because
idea.
after making a whole website about me, I cannot, because literally we stopped being friends because she sent an abuser my way.
On purpose?
She was manic.
Oh,
So she did a lot of things, and I'm not going to disclose most of it. But the thing that hurt me was she had been flirting with one of my old abusers, who she actually held me as I was sobbing after it happened.
hmm.
And she kept flirting with him. And I was like, it's fine. That hurts, but it's okay. But then she sent him my way. And so he messaged me, and we were like, hey, we're going to have to set this boundary. We're not good at setting boundaries, but we're going to have to set this boundary that yes, you can talk to them, you can flirt with them. Don't send them our way.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have them reach out to us because that is traumatic. That is hard for us. We want to leave a lot of the past in the past and process it in our own time. We don't like it abruptly coming up and triggering us when we're trying to be doing better.
I think that's a fair thing to ask.
And she freaked out. And
so she doesn't sound very well either.
Because she was still going through a lot of mental health issues, and we were trying to support her through all of it, and we were trying to be there, and we felt terrible, especially once we saw the website. We were like, ouch. Because I mean, like, she had a history of having like mean girl behavior and like would get close with people so that she could get as much dirt on them as possible. But it did feel good. It felt really good knowing that there was no actual dirt on us. That felt good. Like, because we were like, oh, what's bad about us? Ooh, like, oh, there must be so much bad. Because, like, we constantly have this moral dilemma where we're like, are we a bad person? Are we terrible? But then, like, seeing that through the course of 10 years, all the stuff were lies, except for a previous meth user. And I'm like, okay, that's the truth. But, like, I've recovered. I'm, like, I think approaching 8 years clean.
Nice.
And so it's like, yeah. And so
it's a good website, really.
Yeah, in a sense. But, like, some of it is, like, the picture of us and like our old account being blasted. Like, we can't use that username anymore.
And your dead name is on there. And
full first and last.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, we're legally changing our name as soon as we pay off debts, which actually should be sometime soon because things have been doing a lot better.
Nice. Yeah, the last time we talked, you were talking about getting it legally changed. Last time we talked, we did a live, though, an Instagram live.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we're really excited for that because once we legally change it, it's like we lose all ties with that website. Like, yeah, our face might be in it, but I mean, we could just keep doing dramatic makeup that doesn't match that one. That's honestly why we haven't done a black light look in a while. So because the picture is in black light.
So the website's still up?
Yep. We had asked her after if she could take it down, and she pretended to be pregnant and said, you're going to cause me to have a miscarriage. I can't take it down. Oh, somebody else wrote it. And I was like, please take it down. Like, that puts my life in danger.
Yeah.
Because people can track down anybody by their dead names nowadays.
Plus, I mean, I'm not in IT. I don't know technical computer stuff, but I don't think taking down websites cause, miscarriages.
Yeah, no, the stress of me reaching out. And we're at a point with her where we're at with our parents, where we understand that those choices weren't made in a clear conscience. They were clouded with mental health, but also that they're not healthy people to have in our life. They have hurt us deeply, and we get the choice on if they get to continue hurting us. And we're not going to let that happen.
So you can love them and have empathy for them at a distance.
Yeah. Like, we still want to watch them eat, just not at our table type of thing.
Right. I like that saying.
Yeah. a lot of little like metaphors and like sayings like that we latch on to, because that's another part of the speech with schizotypal.
Huh.
Is it causes you to have like the speech. It also causes you to like combine words sometimes. Not necessarily combine words. It causes unique speech patterns. Like something we love to put is "it's okay."
Oh yeah.
Like it's okay, but it's ISS okay. So it's okay because it just makes it so much more easier for our brain. In the past, we had to go through speech therapy though, because we loved combining words and sentences. Like put it in the trunk. Why not just say "pin up"?
Of course.
So much easier. Causes it where our brain's like, well, that's easier. But then also with that, sometimes it sounds like mumbling.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you'll go on a tangent and like nothing makes sense. And so usually when that happens and somebody's just not able to process it, we're just like, oh yeah, sorry, we're having a soupy brain right now. We can't even explain what that means. But we're having a soupy brain right now. So yeah, our speech is not going to be the best tonight. Sorry.
Soupy brain. I like that too.
Yeah.
When you say soupy brain, what kind of soup do you think of?
Depends on what's going on.
Oh, fair.
Yeah.
So sometimes
Yeah.
it's chicken noodle, sometimes it's tomato, depending on the
like,
type of
sometimes
soupy
there's
brain.
the chunks. You know, like when there's the chunks, those are the chunks of clarity.
Oh, yeah. It's like a stew almost.
Yeah, sometimes it's a stew. Sometimes it's like a split pea soup, or it's just like all meshed together in like green, so you can't even see through it. But yeah, it affects speech style quite a bit, and like appearance, and just like how you act, because it also causes it where you have two types of modes. And like thankfully we have more of an array due to our other disorders. But like if we were to just have schizotypal, it would be with reactions to like things. You could have a flat effect or an inappropriate effect. And so like somebody's like, my grandma just died and they're so sad. Or like we'll talk about something traumatic and we'll start laughing hysterically. And sometimes it makes people feel bad. Like we always feel bad when it's somebody else going through something and we respond and we're laughing and we're like, sorry, that's not funny. We know that's not funny, but we don't know how to react. Or like even the Joker is actually a good example. Not like in Batman movies and stuff, but in the one that's just the Joker where he's wearing like the red suit. It's actually there's few things shown on it that he follows the symptoms of schizotypal. Another famous character in movies and stuff is Willy Wonka. From Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
I love that character.
And you know, like those kids are freaking about to die, and he's just laughing, singing a song. Because that's just how your brain reacts. Like you start laughing or you have a weird reaction to it where you're being silly, goofy, and they're like, that's not funny. Or they'll start laughing and be like, I feel so bad, I shouldn't be laughing, but you're laughing. And I'm like, laugh, it's funny. But sometimes it's the flat effect, which is kind of hard because if it's the flat effect, and that's where I thought for the longest time I had really bad depression. Instead of feeling like sad though, you feel nothing. You feel absolutely no emotion. You are numb. And so like people will say something funny and you're sitting there like, and they're like, but that was funny. And it's like, yeah, no, it is funny. And it makes you feel bad because it seems like you're upset with them or something. And people have literally like, at my old job, walked up to me and were like, hey, are you mad at me or something? Or, hey, you need to act a lot more like charismatic like you usually are because you're being off. You're having off-putting vibes right now. I know quite a bit about mental health just because of compulsive research.
Yeah, you
like,
do.
Pretty much almost every week I go through a research rabbit hole on mental health and like understanding but like also understanding some of the roots for it.
Most of it's trauma, I'm assuming.
Some of it. A lot of it is actually hereditary.
Hereditary or hereditary?
I don't know how it's pronounced.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I'm not good with pronunciations. I just see
That,
the big words and I'm like, yes.
that was your type all changing words.
Yeah. Schizotypal, yeah. But like with schizotypal, its origins are partially genetic, partially can also be due to unusual circumstances in childhood that can make you question reality. And there was another one, I can't quite remember it. I just held on to those two because that combination is probably what caused it. With schizotypal, it's due to like usually a combo or just like one, but it's like harder for it to just be from just genetics because usually people are more prone to get schizophrenia, schizoid, even schizoaffective. It's a lot less common for people to get schizotypal, but with how it ran in my family genetic wise, we had our great aunt Marge. She had very bad untreated schizophrenia and like would yell at chairs and like put them in the shower. And I've actually talked to a few people with schizophrenia and have had like a less drastic of like an understanding of it, but she made it scary. She made it scary where like the rest of the family was like, but then my dad, you know, going to prison and stuff, they were like, you have schizoaffective. You have schizoaffective disorder. That's what's happening to your moods. That's why you're like this. And he's like, no, that stuff really happened. Like, I'm not losing it. People are actually after me because it's harder to differentiate.
Right.
But then with me, it split off into schizotypal. So it was like kind of easier to understand something was going on and being able to accept and understand diagnosis, as hard as it was, because it was like, oh, so you're telling me God's not on speed dial in my brain right now? You're telling me I'm not talking to him right now? Let's see what he has to say about this. If that balloon pops, you're wrong.
And they're like, what balloon?
Yeah.
No.
That would be even better. Like, there's not even a balloon there. If it pops.
It's so bizarre because like when you list all your diagnoses, and I'm like, if I hadn't met you, I would think, wow, this person must be like just strapped to a bed in a center somewhere, in a hospital somewhere, because how can anyone function with all these things? But then, you know, we've met several times. You're like one of my favorite people now, and it's like, you're one of the, you know, you're articulate, you're smart, you're pleasant, you know, like you're all these things. And it's like, I don't know if it's part stigma or part, I don't know what it is. It's just a lot
of stigma.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, you can have all the stuff and be a functioning, lovely person.
Yeah. And that's why we usually don't like bring it all up when we're first meeting someone.
That's fair.
Like, we'll just be like, oh yeah, we face some mental troubles, because then they're more likely to get to know us. Right. And we can slowly ease in, hey, this is because of this disorder. This is because of this disorder. And like kind of ease it in, feed them little bits. Because then there's the normalization. Because if you straight up say, hey, like most of the time, if you say you have any schizo disorder, people will either mess with you or they will not want anything to do with you, which makes you feel even more alone, which is one of the biggest things that you feel with that disorder.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, like, usually you're like, oh, hey, like, I've had people come up to me and be like, because I'd be like, oh, yeah, I found out I have this. And they'll be like, is your food moving? Is your food moving right now? And we wouldn't even explain that that's one of the things we struggle with. And we'd be like, cool, thanks. We just started being able to eat without watching anything. But now we're going to have to, because now this rice is maggots. And it is alive and it does not want to be eaten. And we do not want to eat it. And it's something that we found out the other day that actually made a lot of sense for us is when you have schizotypal, you cannot have another schizo disorder, bipolar, or autism.
Oh.
And for the longest time, we had like suspected that we had autism. because like a lot of people have neurodivergency, and it makes us kind of sad because there's that relatability, but we like also understand that it's really hard. But the thing is, and like our RADS test would always be kind of high. It's because of the different traits of these different disorders can like put together mimic autism. Like OCD has a lot of overlap with it. Like if you touch a bad texture, you're like,
I just learned OCD or they could be wrong, but I'm pretty like the person told me that OCD people are also considered neurodivergent.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's still neurodivergent, but it's not autism directly.
Right. Same with ADHD.
Yeah, but we are neurodivergent. And so that's why we get along a lot with, and it's cool because also with BPD,
Mm-hmm.
since BPD also does the masking that autism does, when you put somebody with BPD and somebody with autism together, they can't mirror each other or like mask each other. And so what happens is it kind of removes the mask so people are able to have a lot more smoother of connections versus how much anxiety there is interacting with somebody who is neurotypical or something. And you're like not able to understand their social cues and everything because the communication is a lot more rigid. And it's a lot harder because you're constantly trying to blend in. And that's why a lot of people who have like BPD, autism, OCD, or neurodivergency of any kind, or just mental health things going on that involve similar traits are able to connect a lot more. And that's why you'll start to notice around like your friend groups and stuff, like pre-diagnosis, and you'll be like, huh, those are traits and symptoms. Or you'll be like with family, you'll be like, oh, that explains it.
That's why
that
we're friends.
Yeah. It's cute though, because so many people are like, everybody does it. Everybody does it. And I'm like, that's what I said about taking pictures of poo. Look where we are.
I was wondering when we'd get back to the poo.
Yeah. Like the fortune reading. Another symptom
of schizotypal.
Yeah.
Right, because that's the magical.
Don't usually do their poop. People don't usually fortune read their poop, but they will read their fortune in other things. Like they will spill something, like, and it will make a pattern, and they're like, "This has a message." So what you'll do is there will be things that are just regular things, and it has a message. It has a deeper meaning to it.
I used to do that when I was like younger, but I think it was more kind of an OCD thinking than it was a schizotypal.
Yeah, OCD magical thinking. Oh, that's another thing. With schizotypal, you tend to think that other people can put thoughts in your head, but you also feel like you can put thoughts in other people's head. And sometimes we like play this game, and then if it catches a similarity, we're like, we did it. We did Inception without them sleeping. Where like we'll look at somebody and we'll just be like, you really want donuts right now, don't you?
Yes, I do.
You really want donuts.
Always.
You want donuts. Yeah. And then like they'll be like, I'm kind of craving donuts right now. And I'm just because I made you want donuts.
They
now we're giving
it.
Donuts. But like sometimes though, like we feel like we can mind read or like arrange the way people think. And so we'll like do things, and like we do it with Einstein a lot, which I know sounds kind of bad, but like we'll look at him and we'll be like, you want to come over here and get loves. You want to give me kisses. Sometimes it doesn't work because like that's not something that actually happens. But then sometimes there's a coincidence that it happens. And we're like, yep, we did that. Because we're powerful and we're strong. Because another thing is you think you have superpowers. And like part of you knows that's not true. Part of you knows that's not possible. But part of you also feels like you are Spider-Man without the webs.
Right.
Like you are Superman. You've come from cool things, you know. Like you're like, wow, I have these wicked powers. Nobody knows.
But when weird things, little small things confirm, like you said, when they do say, yeah, I'm craving a donut, does it ever freak you out? You're like, is it like, yeah, I did that? Or are you ever like, holy fuck, I did that?
mixture of both, honestly. Like, we get so excited internally because we're like, we knew it. We knew it. We have those powers. Yeah, so it has a lot of that where you feel like you have these powers. You feel like you have like all these different skills and abilities. And like sometimes you do. And it does cause a lot of behavior that other people would consider like odd.
Sure.
But like that's literally how it's listed: odd, eccentric behavior and stuff. Because they're like, okay, like one of the traits, as weird as it seems, is superstitiousness.
Right.
If I jinx something, I gotta knock on wood.
Right.
Like that's just the way it is.
That's what OCD seems like to me. It's like extreme. What did you say it was?
Superstition.
Oh my God. Are you in my head? Are you fucking making my brain soup? Because I mean, I'm much more soupier than normal. Anyway, yeah, that's what OCD seems to me. Like when people explain it to me, it just seems like super intense, super. I forgot the word again. Superstitious.
No.
Yeah.
Superstitious. Yes.
I'm just a little suspicious.
Well, there's I think it's 72 different subtypes of OCD.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's actually really.
Oh yeah. There's ones like, am I gay? What the hell? Am I gay? And then like, you're like obsessed about gay, or there's like religious ones like faith, and like, I'm going to hell if I don't snap my fingers 4 times because whatever, I think God likes finger snapping or whatever. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ones. There's also the magical thinking and superstitious. And so when getting assessed and diagnosed, we had to go through those and be able to find the differences to figure out what exactly separated it and like what made it so that, because like also with BPD, you can have slight hallucinations.
Ah.
And so we had to go through all of the diagnosis that we already had and find the parts that set it off, where it made it like, oh, that is the schizotypal personality disorder. So we had to find the little spots in between, but then also a lot of it overlaps. And so it just makes it like a lot more powerful. But there are like key little differences that made it like, okay, OCD, BPD, none of that really causes you to come up with your own little language,
right,
or way of speaking to people.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you know, like, when you're having symptoms of something? Is it like, okay, let's sit here. Is this BPD? Is it OCD? Is it my schizotypal? Is it all 3? Is it an overlap? What? And then, because then how do you, you have all these tools and mechanisms, coping mechanisms to deal with this stuff. And it's like, okay, which one do I use? Because I'm not even sure which disorder or which diagnoses this symptom is from.
And that's why we obsessively research or compulsively research, is because we want to understand the key exact differences. Thankfully, a lot can be treated with talk therapy, with medication management, and with, thankfully, DBT, CBT, setting goals, CBT. But CBD also can help. It's actually not CBD exactly, but CBG, which is usually combined with CBD, is actually something that helps with neurodisorders. And so it's something that we're looking into switching to after we quit nicotine, because we've been lowering the amount of nicotine we've been taking in. Like, we've still been hitting it as much, but lowering the nicotine volume content. And so actually, as soon as we run out of this juice in the next month or 2, we should be off nicotine completely, which is crazy to think about, seeing as we started at 14. But 10 years. We're 24, that's weird. But
do you know how old I am?
Let's go 35.
You were being polite. You wanted to guess higher, but you didn't.
37.
I turned 46 this year.
What?
It's because my body is 46 years old. My brain is like 17. I mean, I'm just like, I'm still a kid in my brain. It feels like
Well,
so.
you also have been aging really well. Because, like, but also that's probably due to like how I was brought up and stuff. Because, like, my mom has 7 kids, and like my dad faced a lot of drug abuse, and like my grandparents faced a lot of like drug abuse. And so, like, my perception on age is a little morphed because if I see someone being like looking a little bit healthier, I'm like young.
Right.
But I mean,
You've also never seen me
40,
from like the shoulders down.
you're also, you said 46 or 45?
I'll be. My birthday's in December, but I'm turning 46 this year.
Okay, yeah, no, because also with that, that's not even like too old. You can't get the senior discount yet, the early bird special.
Fuck no. What do you? No.
You're far away from that, so you're not old yet.
Okay, you did offend me. No. Yeah, but right, like, but when two neurodivergent people hang out who can relate and like, it's like age doesn't matter, right? Like I've hung out with like when I was your age, I'd hang out with people that were neurodivergent in their 40s, and it didn't matter. It was just like, hey, this person's cool, and you connect, and it has nothing to do
Yeah,
with age, and you just enjoy each other's company and relate with
it's
each
nice.
other. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Anyway,
but yeah, it's surreal how much like mental health just like combined to make us the way we are. Because also, like with the normalization, it's really nice. And we think part of it is also due to pretty privilege.
the what privilege? Sorry.
Pretty privilege, where if somebody sees you as attractive, they are less likely to see the faults.
Mm-hmm.
One of our favorite ways to describe pretty privilege is sharks versus dolphins. Like, sharks are so scary, but they've done less damage than dolphins. Dolphins have done a lot of terrible things and are just like the sea's sociopaths. But they're just chilling. And people are like, dolphins are so majestic, but sharks are scary. But like people in the past have actually like when trying to like get with us have been like, you don't look traumatized. And I'm like, how am I supposed to look traumatized?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and I was sitting here wondering, like, what do you ever wonder, like, if you didn't have all the trauma and the good, there's nature and nurture and all this stuff, like, if you didn't have all these diagnoses, do you think you would be that much different personality wise?
Yeah.
Like maybe your style would be different and stuff, but like, you'd still be like, because you're very giggly and like you're smart and
It's all disorders. Einstein, actually, like Albert Einstein,
not your cat.
they believe he had schizotypal because it gives you those moments of like brief genius clarity while also having those moments of being like all over the place. And so that's where it's like, because like if you think about it, Joker was honestly kind of a genius and like a ringleader to cause all this chaos. He had these moments where he was very profound and like knew a lot. And like Willy Wonka having that whole chocolate factory, genius.
But they're both made up people.
Yes, they're made up. But Albert Einstein was not.
Yes, he is.
He is the. You're like, who's that? That person doesn't exist. Just like, it's another delusion. What's real?
My poop was wrong.
Yeah. And so like a lot of them just have these moments of like clarity and understanding. And then also with the OCD, compulsively researching, a lot of people don't take the time to really look into things. Schizotypal makes us look deeper into things, so we're very like wise when it comes to spiritual stuff. And then with the giggliness and the positivity and all of that, that is due to the dissociative identity disorder combined with the histrionic.
So how do you think you would be if you took away all the trauma and disorders?
Probably someone who, if we met them, how we are now, we would not like them. As weird as that sounds.
Okay.
Because, like, also we have a hard time when there's people with, like, a really healthy, like, life. Like, if they're, like, had no trauma growing up or anything. Because it's like, well, it's because they're not really able to connect or understand. And sometimes it's like they refuse to believe that that would happen to anyone because they haven't personally experienced it.
Right.
And so it makes it really hard because it's like, with how we are, though, people are able to open up and sometimes it scares them. They're like, I don't open up to people, but like, I'm opening up to you. And it scares me because this is so soon. And I don't know why, but I feel like I can trust you. Because even though our schizotypal makes it where we can't like 100% trust anybody, we make it very clear that we're a safe environment. And like we talk a lot about what we've gone through, which shows trust of some sort because of being so open about our like life and our experiences. But because of that, it makes it so people know that they can open up about things that have happened to them, things that they probably swore they would have taken to the grave. And it scares them because you can't just trust anybody. There's people who would use it against you. But for us, we just try to like help if they need help or listen if they just need somebody to listen. Or like if they need like, if they're like, I want to find a way to make this funny because it bothers me, but I want to cope with humor. We'll sit there and try to come up with like things and be like, how about this? And they're like, okay, that's good. I like that. I'm going to use that. And so we're able to help others in a way that we wouldn't have been able to if we had not gone through the experiences we have. Like
true.
We have gone through almost every type of traumatic thing other than loss of a close family member. And we really hope that never happens.
Yeah. It is funny that people like, if it hasn't happened to them, they don't believe it. It's like, oh, that's just, they're faking it or whatever. I mean, I have never seen a gorilla in person, but yet I believe there's gorillas.
Yeah.
I believe they actually exist. I like, what, why not? Like, yeah. And, but the fucked up thing is, some people do fake it. Like on TikTok, there are people that fake Tourette's and fake DID and stuff, which, so then I guess that does, I don't know, cloud up people's thoughts.
That's why we go normalization route.
Yeah.
That's exactly why, like on our old account, we had our diagnosis list and we were like very open about it. But we realized a lot of people, if they find out you have these things, what they'll do is they will either fake claim, even if it's a written diagnosis, or what they'll do is they want a show.
Right.
It's you're different than us. Do this, do that. And like, it makes me sad because a lot of dissociative identity disorder creators, I understand that they're going for awareness. And even if they actually have it and everything, I'm very proud of them for being able to. A lot of people with dissociative identity disorder actually aren't too public about it, though, because they do not want to be made a spectacle. They don't want people observing their, like, how they are. They don't want people observing their switches until, like, they are ready to open up and have that layer of somewhat trust with them. Because that's honestly why we realized ours is so subtle publicly and stuff. Because we realized the different, like, in the voices and stuff actually come out when we're talking to people, like after a long duration of time. If we are almost constantly on the phone with them, then we're able to open up and let it out because we're less afraid of people being like, you're talking funny right now. You're being different. Wow, look at that.
So have you switched during this conversation? Because we've been talking about an hour and a half and we've talked before.
A few times. We roughly switch 3 to like over 100 times an hour, depending on how rapid the switches are. We just a lot of times try to keep it a little more subtle. And also it's kind of hard to understand because a lot of like dissociative identity disorder creators show Like, this is my style when I'm this person.
Yeah.
This is my style when I'm this person. We switch so often that we don't have those time slots.
Yeah.
We don't, like, it's pretty unpredictable how long someone's going to be out. So we just kind of try to do things that work for all of us. And if we have a hard time with it, we'll just avoid mirrors so we can internally feel like we look the way we feel. And like, if we get like, that's why also sometimes we get uncomfortable or something if someone points out our appearance, because we're like, let us live in our little fantasy that we look like this right now. But that's where it's hard, because people just see like these like drastic changes and see, oh, see, you could tell that's different people because of the difference in style. But if it's just looking the same and being like, yeah, I have this, people are like, or they're like, oh, you use I sometimes. Well, yeah, because the grammar changes on who's out. It's not just like linear, like all of us act the exact same and talk the exact same, because otherwise that wouldn't be dissociative identity disorder.
Right. And yours is also polyfragmented, is that what it's called? So
yeah.
it's different than
the regular dissociative identity disorder.
Yeah.
It's actually a less common version of it that can be caused by sadistic abuse. And so, yeah.
Wow.
Parents did a really good job.
Yeah. But we should do another live or something sometime.
Yes, please. Yeah. We're always available. And like, even though we suck at checking messages, we always dig through trying to see if you like messaged or anything. Cause we're like, no, like, you're one of our favorite people to talk to. And we're so thankful that you have given us the opportunity to be able to like speak.
It's my pleasure.
But like speak on the podcast and stuff, and be able to have those opportunities to be like, this is what's going on. And this is because it gives a safe place to talk about those things where people can't really be like, oh, do a trick for me, switch for me. I want to meet your little.
But the pleasure is all mine, Trash, in fact. No, you can have some of the pleasure. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we really appreciate you, and we get excited being able to talk.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're really excited.
Thank you so much, Trash. As always, you are amazing, and I appreciate our friendship, and I appreciate you being so open and vulnerable all the time, and just being so willing to speak with me in general, whether it's about mental health or not. I'm always honored to speak with you. So thank you so much. And I'm sure in the future, Trash will be back on, and so will Haley Rose at some point. So I look forward to that. Until then, please remember to make your beds and take your meds. Bye.